and thank you for joining me. My name is Jeff, and I am an alcoholic, a drug addict, a codependent, and a reformed criminal with PTSD and bipolar disorder in recovery. And this show is called How It Works, going after an expression from the original 12-step recovery group, Alcoholics Anonymous, and one of the more important readings. This is episode 2 of How It Works, and we're going to continue with the reading of how it works and get into the steps and see how far we can get in actually explaining how these steps work. And so what I'd like to do is just pick up where we left off and continue the reading and get through the steps, and then we'll go through a detailed explanation of the steps and how they may benefit you. And if you'd like to follow along, just go out to the internet and type into Google How It Works, and it'll pull up a page and a link to the PDF you can download and read along. So picking up where I left off, here are the steps we took which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take a personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A. That we are alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C. That God could and would if He were sought. Now, there's a few things I'd like to mention about this reading. First, it's my belief, I'd like to suggest that the steps were not invented, they were discovered. They were something that they were always there, and that this is just one of the ways to describe this process. And the process doesn't even need to be specifically 12 steps. It just worked out that way when they wrote it. But the idea is that these are universal truths. These are things that can benefit anyone. And they're the way to clear shame out of your life. This is a shame removal system, and the process of recovery helps you develop a sense of connection to something that is healthy and within you, and it helps you become honest and it helps guide you through all your decisions. So these things are always there. They don't have to be part of AA. They could just be part of your life. Another thing I'd like to mention is that, for those of you who do not believe in God or a higher power or a deity of sorts, that you can just replace the word God with peace. As I mentioned in the first episode, it's that peaceful part of us that is really guiding us to the things that we most want, most desire, the best part of ourselves. So surrender yourself to peace whenever you see that word God. And don't let the word upset you. It doesn't have to be a being, a creature, or something that's out there deciding how things happen. It could just be something within you. All right. So now I've taken all the steps and I've rewritten them in a fashion that will be more appealing to a broader audience, I believe. And I formed a company called Mixed Recovery because most of the 12-step organizations do not want to enter into controversy. It's part of their bylaws. It's part of their traditions that you're not supposed to, publicly involve them in the press or media. But my company is willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to stand up and say, hey, these things actually work, and here's a different way to describe them that's going to appeal to, hopefully more people, give it a plain language, take some of the mysticism out of it, and just explain recovery in a way that it makes sense to you logically. All right, so let's start into the steps, and I want to point out this first step is the one they say that you must get absolutely right. So I'm going to explain what this step means. As I mentioned in my first episode, I admitted that I was an alcoholic for many years, but what I had a problem with was admitting that the condition was unmanageable. And one day, I woke up with a horrible hangover, and I realized finally, after being sick so many times from drinking, after having so many bad experiences with drinking, that I can't control it. That I can't control how much I'm going to drink or what nights I'm going to end up with a hangover. And I just came to a point where I realized I can't do this anymore. I'm hurting myself. I don't want it. And I need help. And when I finally had that realization, I went from thinking maybe I could handle my drinking to I absolutely don't want to. I'm done. I'm out. And this is what's called hitting bottom. Now, not everybody hits bottom in the same way. For me, I had to have many bottoms before I had this one final bottom. For some people, it's just one hair-raising experience, just changes them. They have a massive shift in consciousness. But whatever happens, however it happens, what happens inside your mind is that you've changed your thinking completely. You've gone from maybe to absolutely no. And once you do that, then you realize that you're going to need to do something about it, that this is a genuine problem that you don't want in your life anymore, and you become willing to make some changes. If this is the only step that you get right, unfortunately you enter into another stage of alcoholism called dry drunk. Now, I personally had an 11-year dry drunk. After I had a few years of recovery, I met a woman, we became married, things were going good. I loosely admitted that I was an alcoholic. I avoided alcohol for 11 years. But the problem with dry drunk is I still had all of the reasons why I drank in the first place. They had gone dormant. It wasn't as much of a problem because my life was going good. But in this dry drunk state, I still had all my resentments, all my character defects. They were hidden, they were unknown, and they were a problem just waiting to happen again. And at the end of my first marriage, because I didn't go and complete the recovery process, I didn't continue with it, I ended up getting a divorce because I really wasn't self-aware. I didn't see my part in the relationship, and I failed the marriage, and so she found somebody else, and then I turned back to the bottle. So 11 years I went without drinking, and this period of time is called dry drunk, and it doesn't matter what the addiction is. If you drop an addiction of any kind and don't resolve your character defects and resentments, then you still have all the reasons for being an addict. You're just not using. And a lot of times dry drunks are angry, arrogant, pushy, demanding, control freaks. So something to keep in mind, if you have some of those conditions, it may be that you're in denial and struggling with the fact that you still need help with your issues. Okay, and moving on, step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. As I mentioned earlier, you might find that this power that's greater than yourself is that sense of inner peace. Because think of yourself as consciousness inside of a human. And the human part of you has this thing called an ego. And your ego is anything that disturbs your peace, whether it's positive or negative. That's part of the realm of ego. Those are your emotional experiences. Without emotion, we are just calm, silent consciousness. We have no thoughts, we have no feelings, we just observe life as it is. And so whether you believe in God or not, I'd like to suggest that you just understand that there is some part of you that is sane, and that you can tap into that as a source of recovery. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Now, as I've mentioned in the previous episode, logic, will, and desire are part of this realm of your being called ego. And so what happens with addicts is that we want more than we can have. It's a very common part of the human condition, wanting more than you can have. And in doing so, we cause a lot of unnecessary thinking, and we tend to obsess about things and overthink everything so that we can get more of the things we want. And with this idea of turning our will over, that means we accept what we already have. And we learn how to start from that point of understanding rather than focusing on the things we don't have. You're focusing on the things that you do have. You learn how to be grateful for those things, and you stop trying to control your life, and you start recognizing that things are happening, that your life is happening with or without you. There's things all around you happening all the time that you don't have any control over. And the main point of the first 3 steps is basically to get you grounded and to help you process things better and to keep you from overthinking. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This is the step that frightens off most people. Frankly, there are thousands and thousands of people in recovery who never got through this step. They say that meeting makers make it, and that's true. You can stay sober, you can stay clean if you just go to meetings. But when things really start to unfold is when you get into the inventory work. And this is your self-awareness work. This is where you figure out who you are. And you decide what things you're going to keep and what things you're going to let go of. And you start to identify the behaviors that are causing problems in your life. You become more honest. You become more accountable. And as I said, you become more self-aware. So having self-awareness gives you the power to overcome the adversities in your life. And without self-awareness, you are in denial. So you may have broken your initial addiction, but you're still in denial about all the conditions and causes that created the addiction in the first place. And it's kind of interesting to note that whether you're taking your inventory or somebody else's inventory, you're really just taking your own inventory. Step 5, admit to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. This step absolutely represents confession. It's helping us reach acceptance. We need to be in acceptance when we have a sincere confession. And I want to point out that a confession is not telling the truth, because we can tell the truth, and without the emotional content, without the emotional realization, it's just words. So, as I mentioned, many years I was able to admit that I was an alcoholic. About 30 years I could admit I was an alcoholic. But I didn't emotionally understand what that meant because I didn't see the unmanageable part of it. I thought I could handle it. Now when I say it, it has a real deep meaning for me. So now I'm being honest about the fact that, yeah, I have a problem drinking and I should never drink again. That's my reality. It doesn't need to be yours. But in this context, I am unable to continue drinking for the rest of my life, and I'm absolutely fine with that. Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Well, whether God exists or not is left to be seen and determined by you personally. But the willingness is something you can definitely work on. And a lot of times we don't want to let things go. You can still become willing even when you don't want to. You can still have resentment and you want to keep it, but logically and spiritually, there's a part of you that knows I really do need to let this go. Even though I don't want to, I need to, and so I can work on the willingness part. So it's really important that we connect with that sense of willingness and repeat it each day. Look at everything that's causing problems in your life and become willing to do something about it, even if you're not ready to do it now, because the willingness will create the situations and the circumstances where suddenly you will be ready. And it may happen without warning. It might just be one day something happens and it's like, that's it, I'm done smoking. Or I'm done talking about people behind their backs. I'm going to stop that behavior. It doesn't serve me anymore. Whatever your character defect is, if you become willing to let it go, eventually you will let it go. Step 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Now, this is another formula. It's really important to understand, again, whether God exists or not. If you're just asking the universe, if you're just asking, the empty space in front of you, we need to ask for the things that we want. And we need to verbalize it. We need to express it. We can't just occasionally think it. You have to ask for it. And in asking for it, it helps develop the situations where it will occur. Without asking for it, it's just not going to happen. So I'm going to discuss other universal truths in later episodes, and we're going to cover this Bashar's seven laws of manifesting, and we'll show you how the asking portion of that process helps manifest things in your life. So, without asking for it, it's basically just a dormant thought. But in asking for it, you activate yourself, you activate your subconscious mind, you activate the things in the universe that are going to attract things to you. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Again, there's that word willingness. I will admit there's a lot of people who I've harmed in the past that I really do not want to make any kind of amends towards. I feel completely comfortable with the harm that I caused them. I don't want to do anything, and I'm not willing to let it go. But I need to take a look at those behaviors. I need to be honest with myself and surrender to this program and accept the fact that, eventually I may have to change a behavior and say I'm sorry. And I also want to point out that an apology is not necessarily part of an amends. In many cases, an apology is not necessary. What an amends is a changed behavior. And a lot of times, changing the behavior alone is the apology that people were really looking for or hoping for, because they don't want to see you do harmful things to yourself or others. And so when you stop doing those things and replace them with a healthy behavior, then that in itself is an amends. And you can get far in life if you're just willing to change your harmful behaviors to something that's healthier. And making a list of the people that you've harmed, it's part of this inventory process. It's part of getting things down on paper and recognizing that, I have responsibility for the things that I'm creating in my life. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Keep in mind, others include yourself. You don't need to hurt yourself to make amends. If it's going to cost you a job, a marriage, this may not be the right time to be honest. Or maybe you don't need to be directly honest to that person because of the harm it will cause. Keep in mind that if you were using or drinking at the time that you did certain things, you weren't in the right state of mind. So even though you need to be accountable for your actions, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be directly accountable because of the damage it'll cause. Also, just because you're ready to apologize to somebody doesn't mean that they're ready to hear it. Sometimes it takes people a long time to process grief, and if they're not ready, then when you go to say, hey, I'm sorry, I've changed my behaviors, they don't care. They don't want to hear it. It's not going to help the situation at all. So you need to have your head about you when you go to do these things. This is not about forcing a bunch of apologies. It's about creating willingness, and somehow magically in creating the willingness, somehow the opportunity will arise if and when it's meant to. So I'm very firm on the idea that you have to attract things into your life, don't force them. Step 10, we continued to take a personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Now, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I feel that being honest at all times, under every circumstance possible, is really the key to your spiritual foundation. Spiritual really means honest and self-aware. So, there's a lot of people have different meanings for the word spiritual, but in terms of recovery, honesty, self-awareness, those are the things that keep you spiritual, accountable, and healthy. So Continuing to take personal inventory means daily. It means taking a look at your actions. How do you impacted other people today? How you affected the things in your own life today? And what can you do better about it tomorrow if needed? So that's the real purpose of step 10, and it's what we call the maintenance steps. Because now that you've gone through the inventory steps, which is steps 4 through 9, we want to maintain that spiritual fitness, and that's what's going to keep you from relapsing into old behaviors or one of your addictions. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, the step 11 prayer is not the only prayer that you'll want in your regimen if you do pray. The step 11 prayer is, asking for guidance on a daily basis. I express 3 things in prayer. I express gratitude, I ask to have things removed from my life, and I ask for guidance. And so if you don't pray, that's fine. You can meditate for guidance. You can meditate and try to connect with that inner peace or, the universe or whatever it is you believe in, asking for guidance for something outside of your ego. Stop relying on your logic, will, and desire to guide your life and start looking for that sense of guidance from within that doesn't have any words. And finally, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now, in Alcoholics, we say we, take the message to other alcoholics. Originally, it was just others. And in, mixed recovery, where we deal with any form of addiction, that, it's just take it to others. And the idea is that I need to share this message with other people in order to reinforce it within myself, remind myself, and to help build my self-esteem. Because now that I've taken my inventory and continue to take my inventory, well, I may have a tendency to have a lot of negative thoughts about myself. Even after I've healed, I might still carry some shame, regret, remorse, and what cleans that up, what helps me feel better about it, is the amends that I make when I'm giving other people support. When I give other people support, I'm becoming selfless, and I'm connecting with the best part of myself. And it's, a gentle reminder to me that I do have value, that I can make a difference, and that there is something healthy about me, because it's easy to fall back into ego. So the 12-step awakening is for the people that have already gone through the rest of the steps and they finally realize, yes, this stuff works, and I want it to be a part of my life. Now, if you're interested in more of what I have to say, please do like and follow. You'll find me on Spotify. You'll find me on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. And please visit our website. It's constantly growing. It's called mixedrecovery.com, where there are some self-awareness tests that you can take, and you can fill out forms and begin your recovery process. And we're going to be adding to this as time goes by. We're going to create more forms for you to do inventory work and to start your recovery process for those who are interested. So once again, my name is Jeff. Thank you for joining me. I hope this has been an informative episode for you, and best wishes.